Okay, back with chapter 2 in Isaiah. It says this. The mountain of the Lord. The word that Isaiah the son of Amoz saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. It shall come to pass in the latter days, which of course could be related to prophecy, to end times and all. It says, "It shall come to pass in the latter days, and the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be lifted up above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it." So it sounds like what's talking about is whenever Christ returns, and he sits on his throne. It sounds like to me, and of course it talks about when Christ returns, his feet will hurt. It will hit on the Mount of Olives, which is in Jerusalem. Sounds like to me, from what's talking about here in Isaiah, is that when Christ returns and he sets his throne, he will set his throne up on the highest mountain in Jerusalem, which could be the Mount of Olives. And it says so that he's over all. That's one. It says that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be lifted up above the hills, and all the nations shall flow to it. Of course, when he returns and sets his throne up on this high mountain in Jerusalem, which is probably going to be the Mount of Olives, he will bring all nations below him to judge them all. It says, "And many people shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion, or Jerusalem, shall go the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and shall decide disputes for many people. And they shall beat their swords into their plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more." It's talking about the return of Christ. When he returns, of course, when he returns, though, it's going to be an all-out battle against him and the devil and all that. But once everything's said and done, and once he comes, there will be peace, and there will be no more wars, because he is over all, and God is peace, God is love. Of course, that's talking about Christ. And once he returns, Christ is not going to return as a baby, as we all know. He's going to come back as a fierce warrior. He's going to come back and destroy the sinners, those who do not repent their sins and turn to him. He's going to destroy them. He's going to destroy Satan and sin once and for all. He's going to destroy trying to make the demons. I mean everything. He's going to come back and destroy it all for once and for all, so that he can set up his kingdom here on earth. And once he does that, of course, there will be no more wars, because he will bring the ultimate peace to earth. So no one will know war no more, because there will be total peace once he returns. It says, verse 5. It says, "O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord, the day of the Lord." This is talking about the return of Christ. "For you have rejected your people, the house of Jacob, because they are full of things from the east, and of fortune tellers like the Philistines, who are, of course, gods of today. And they strike hands with the children of foreigners. Their land is filled with silver and gold, and there is no end to their treasures. Their land is filled with horses, and there is no end to their chariots. Their land is filled with idols. They bow down to the work of their hands, to what their own fingers have made. So man is humbled, and each one is brought low. Do not forgive them. Enter into the rock and hide in the dust, from before the terror of the Lord, and from the splendor of his majesty." God's saying, he's calling his people out of these nations before he wipes these nations off the face of the earth. Because he doesn't want his children to be caught up in this stuff, so he's telling them to get out before I wipe it all out. Kind of like what he did with Sodom and Gomorrah. He brought Lot and his family out and then destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. He did the same thing with Noah. He put Noah and his family into the ark and then wiped out the world and saved Noah and his family. It says, enter to the rock and hide in the dust from before the terror of the Lord and from the splendor of his majesty. The haughty looks of a man, or like a prideful look of a man, shall be brought low, and the lofty pride of man shall be humbled, and the Lord alone will be exalted in that day. The Lord of hosts, who is of course Christ, has that day against all that is proud and lofty, against all that is lifted up, and it shall be brought low, against all the cedars of Lebanon, and lofty and lifted up, and against all the oaks of Bashan, against all the lofty mountains, and against all the uplifted hills, against every high tower, and against every fortified wall, against all ships of Tarshish or Spain, and against all the beautiful crowd. And the haughtiness of man shall be humbled, and the lofty pride of men shall be brought low. And the Lord alone will be exalted in that day. And the idols shall utterly pass away, and the people shall enter the caves of the rocks, and the holes of the ground, from before the terror of the Lord, and from the splendor of his majesty, when he rises to terrify the earth. So because that's what I was saying, when Christ returns, he's not coming back as a little baby. He's coming back as a mighty warrior. He's coming back to destroy this world once and for all. He's coming back to absolutely crush those who didn't repent of their sins, who turned away from God and rebelled. He's coming back to absolutely crush his enemies. He's going to destroy them, and he's coming back as a wrathful warrior. He's bringing just, he's bringing hell with him. He's going to absolutely destroy this world. He's coming back as a mighty warrior. He's going to absolutely terrify those who are not saved. He's going to pour out his wrath upon them. He's going to wipe them out completely and save his children. It's pretty awesome. That's an awesome father. That's a loving father. Someone who's going to come back and who's going to destroy his children's enemies, and who's going to love and protect his child. That's an awesome father. That's a loving father. That's the God I serve. God is terrifying. He's also loving, but he's also terrifying as well. Someone you don't want to mess with. It says again, if people shall enter the caves of the rocks and the holes of the ground, from before the terror of the Lord and from the splendor of his majesty, when he arises to terrify the earth. And people, when he returns, people are going to be so terrified, they're going to try to hide from him, but it's not going to be no use, because he's going to bring them out from their hiding places, and he's going to, those who are not saved, he's going to crush, he's going to terrify, he's going to destroy. Those who are saved, he will save them from his wrath. And that day mankind will cast away their idols of silver and their idols of gold, which they made for themselves to worship, to the moles and to the bats, to enter the caverns of the rocks, and the clefts of the cliffs, from before the terror of the Lord, and from the splendor of his majesty. And he rises to terrify the earth. Stop regarding man, in whose nostrils is breath, for of what accounts. Let me read that one more time, verse 22. Stop regarding man, in whose nostrils is breath, for of what account is he? So of course, we breathe because of God. If God cut off oxygen, we'd be all dead. God gives us oxygen so we can breathe, so we can stay alive. But this is chapter 2. Another awesome chapter. Like I said, Isaiah, every chapter gets more and more like wow. It gets more and more terrifying, I guess you could say. But it's awesome at the same time. It's showing the wrathful side of God, also showing the loving side of God also. And when Christ returns, he's coming to destroy his enemies. He's coming to destroy those who are against his children, but he's coming to save his children from his wrath also. Chapter 2, this is chapter 2, talks about the mountain of the Lord. About, when Christ returns, he sets his throne on the Mount of Olives, so they can oversee everything, and then all the nations will be brought to be judged. And then the day of the Lord talks about the return of Christ. So it's chapter 2, and I'll be about chapter 3 here shortly.